What is up, everyone? Today we have an EBZ8500, which is going to be the focus of a future video, but this is going to be a video that I hope helps someone out because it is pretty important. As you can tell, I have a variety of backpack blowers. It's roughly the end of leaf season, and people are bringing their older blowers to get repaired. And this video is going to be about something a little bit different. Well, hold on there. Over 90% of you, according to YouTube, are not currently subscribed. You're watching this video, but you're currently not subscribed. So I'm going to welcome you to subscribe at the end if this helped you out. I work in a lot of machines, so maybe the machine you're watching is going to be something you own, but who knows? Maybe you own a generator, a pressure washer, a big mower, a chainsaw, a variety of things. The only way to know if I'm going to fix it in the future is by subscribing, and maybe I get to the one that you own and can help you out then too. So I welcome you to subscribe, put a thumbs up if it does help you out. Back to your normal video. Before I continue, I'm going to have you understand this is going to be a whole lot of talking, a whole lot not working. I'm not going to go over specifics, I'm not going to go over numbers, no engine specs, anything like that. This is going to be a video about if given the opportunity to purchase a new blower, which one would I personally buy if I was in the market for a large blower like this one. I'm going to go over pretty much there's three in my opinion. There's the Echo, there's the Red Max, or the Husqvarna, and the Steel 4 mixes. Sorry about that. So I'm going to go over a couple items, so I suggest that you sit down, relax, get something to drink, and we will go ahead and go over it. In addition to that, I'm just going to start this off saying I would 100% do a Red Max or Echo. They're interchangeable in my opinion. Whatever price you can get, if it's better for either one, the performance isn't all that much different. So for demonstration purposes, I have a Red Max here. Personal preference as well between those two. If you like Echo, then go with Echo. If you don't really care, you find this one cheaper, go ahead and get that one. Side note, if you can find a Husqvarna version of this, it's even cheaper than that one. Moving forward, I'm not going to say as well that I would never purchase a Steel, but stick around towards the end. If you do have a Steel BR800, 800, anything along those lines, 800X, you've seen those in plenty of times in my videos, so go ahead and stick around. I'll tell you if you do have one, special maintenance items you need to do if you have those that you most likely will not have to pay too much attention if you were to buy this. So let's go ahead and get started. I kind of let the cat out of the bag, as one would say, about which one I would choose. Hands down, the EBZ8500, 8550, it's more or less the same. If you're going to compare the two on paper between the Red Max and the Steel BR800 or 800X, you would find that the 800 on paper is probably going to be a little bit more powerful, and you can kind of feel it. I'm not going to argue that. You can totally feel it. It's not super noticeable, but it is noticeable. Like if you were to sit down and just kind of pay attention to it, you could tell a difference. If you didn't actually sit down and pay attention to it though, you probably wouldn't notice a difference. So if you're only interested in numbers, go with the Steel. But let me explain something. I'm going to go over the common faults of this one, and most importantly the Steel. This one, the common fault that I see is the recoil. They're kind of crap. They're also kind of cheap, which is nice. And as well, the crankcase on the bottom. The crankcase has a tendency of snapping off a couple of the mounting bolts. That is a $60 part. It's not too bad for replacement. A person in their garage with some semi-specific tools can take care of it, or a shop can do it, but that's going to be a little expensive. It's not going to be nearly as expensive as a very common, much more common problem on a Steel, but we'll get to that later. Other than that, carbs, they're cheap. The straps, cheap. Service materials, air filter, cheap. Basically, it's cheap. Is it cheap quality? No. It's just a type of part that is shared amongst two platforms, Redmax and Husqvarna. And they're a lot easier to find. You don't need to contact the steel dealer, you don't need to contact the Redmax dealer, you don't need to contact anyone. You just need to go online. You can order parts through ereplacement.com, Part Warehouse, or whatever it's called, I forget. You know, all kinds of websites will have these parts available, and they're cheap. You can get the part number, find them on eBay, Amazon, whatever, if you want to get aftermarket. They're easy. That's a very good point about this one. And like I said, it is a very powerful machine. So unless you are needing that extra power, which off the top of my head, I can't imagine a reason where extra 30 to 40 CFM or a couple, maybe 10 mile per hour extra wind velocity or whatever is really going to be the breaking point of your business or your home experience. Not just my opinion though, I'm not a professional landscaper, I just fix these machines. Having used both, however, I can, like I said, say there is this minor difference, but that minor difference, in my opinion, is just overkill for steel. So I think it's time that we back up a little bit. The reason why I'm making this is I was filming a steel video, which did not end well, mainly because it's going to be trashed, and secondly because I forgot to turn on the microphone, so we're not going to see it. But in this same day, I got both two comments on a previous video on the steel, as well as a Redmax blower, and this person that I'm talking about on the previous machine asked me the exact same thing in person, literally the exact same day. And that question is this: I'm tired of fixing this. It's super expensive. Is there something, should I just keep on buying a new one? Am I doing something wrong, or why should I buy something else? I guess it's a compound question. Having said that, what I'm going to go with next is kind of the problem that steels have. And there's mainly two big problems. They have their problems too, like, you know, their filters go bad and all that stuff is normal. Any machine's going to have that. So if you're going to consider that as a problem, then you need to look back at yourself. But the specific problem that we are having, or at least I'm having a lot of, two things. It's considered a 4 mix, and basically on the steel, I don't have one. Like I said, it's been taken away, and I wish I would have filmed this beforehand. But in a 4 mix, it has valves. Those valves need to be adjusted. That's not a hard process. It's really not. But it's an annoying process, and it requires either a modified tool or a special tool. Personally, the idea to me of having a specialized tool do such a common maintenance item is stupid, but whatever. Imagine, however, though, you are a professional and you have a group of guys, women, mixed, whatever, and they go out, they're in the middle of a big job. They're not mechanics, they don't know, they just work for you. They take out the machine, they turn it on, they put it away, they do their job. They're not going to be able to do that. So either you have to be super up on your maintenance, or you're going to have problems. You're going to have multiple machines, and that's just going to be costly. This has no valves. It's a simple, old-style 2-cycle. There's faults with that. You know, it's going to be less efficient. You're probably going to be going through more fuel. But the fuel savings, in my opinion, is really not all that much, especially if you have to get your machines worked on. Those service bills can add up pretty fast as well. So this is a better option, in my opinion. Now, the second and probably the worst part about it is I cannot tell you how many times I've gotten in a machine that I don't even film because I get this exact same problem. You turn it on and it sounds like it's knocking. It's not sounding like it's knocking, it is knocking. This is on the steel BR800 specifically. I ran across it maybe 1 or 2 times with the 600, but a lot with the 800s. And the knocking itself is actually completely, it's not even reversible. It's something that you will end up spending a lot of money on. Let me explain why. Basically, the connecting rod is different than on this type of machine. This type of machine, the connecting rod is hardened, I believe, and it has a needle bearing. The other one does not. It has a bushing. And over time, that bushing wears out, which is odd to me because it's a professional machine. Those get used a lot. However, it happens. Now, everyone's going to say, just replace the connecting rod. Can't do that. You have to get the whole crank assembly. In addition to that, you need a cylinder. And with it knocking back and forth because it's starting to egg itself out, you're going to need most likely a cylinder as well. That in of itself, if you're going to buy the parts just by themselves, upwards of $480. That's a lot. You might be able to find a cheaper alternative out there, maybe used, but you're taking a real big chance. That's $480. This one, because that doesn't really ever happen, don't have to worry about it. I've never had to replace a crankshaft or connecting rod in this machine. I've replaced dozens of cylinders, a whole lot of pistons, all kinds of stuff because of poor gas choices mainly, but I've never had to do a connecting rod. Steels, I've had to tell at least 10 to 12 people this year alone the bad news. Why is it like that? I don't know, to be honest. Older ones, the older steels, they were good. A lot of them are still running to this day. It's just these newer ones, I don't know if it's cost savings or what, but it's not good. They don't run very long. There are ways to make sure they do run for a long time, but unless you know what you're doing, you're not going to know that it's really that much of a difference from any of your other machines. So, in that situation alone, I would say this one's already a better choice because you're not going to have to worry about that rod issue. Only thing you're going to have to worry about is making sure you put oil in the fuel. And which kind of brings me to the bonus part of if you do have a steel BR600 or 800 or 800X. If you already have one, are you doomed? Do you throw your money away down the toilet? Should you just sell it now, go off and buy a new one and cut your losses? No. They make special oil made by Steel, and it's for mix machines. You, in my opinion, don't need it for the smaller ones, because if you look at the 4-mix hedge trimmers or weed eaters or weed eater machine with a hedge trimmer attachment, whatever, forgetting the numbers off the top of my head. I have dozens of videos about them. They all appear to have the same build as the old ones, and there's no problems with them. In my opinion, the 4-mix oil is pretty much only needed for the 600, 800, and 800X. And maybe even the smaller backpack blowers. I don't see a whole lot of those, and I especially haven't had to do repair on them because they're pretty cheap to begin with. And if you need an engine replacement, then most people will be opting to just buy a new one, even if this problem wasn't affecting them. So don't take my word on that one. These are only the big ones. Having said that, if you do have a steel of that size, it is imperative that you get good quality steel 4-mix oil, or at the very least a very high quality 2-cycle oil mix, because if you do not, your future will end up with a knocking noise. It will run, it will eventually seize up or explode. Okay, maybe not explode, but at least cause severe damage, and you would have thrown away all that money. You take it to me, and I will have to tell you all the bad news in the world, to then just have you have a repaired machine that in the future, if you continue to run just normal 2-cycle mix through it, it's just going to continue to happen again and again and again. So don't do that. A little long-winded on that point, but it's really important. That is a very large issue. The valves, not that big of an issue, more of an annoyance. The oil, very big issue. Definitely not just an annoyance, but it's a very expensive problem. As I said in the beginning, if you are expecting a spec sheet in front of you showing this machine at this RPM or this speed gets this many miles per hour or this many CFM, that's not this type of video. In my opinion, all the big blowers, they do an excellent job. Get the one that's a good name. If you get a steel, make sure you give a good oil. If you get a Red Max, get a good quality oil. That's just anything. I highly recommend the Echo Red Armor. But if you have your own, maybe you like the Echo Mix or other Echo Mixes or anything else, just make sure it's a good quality oil. This machine will live a very long life, and you'll have to deal with a recoil problem, which is 4 screws and an internet order to repair. Same thing with Echo. They all have the same, more or less, problems. Their recoils are basically same quality, so expect to have issues like that. And if you are still here, here's a bonus little piece of information for you. Remember how I told you all the maintenance parts on this machine are cheap? Well, the reason why they're cheap is a lot of manufacturers use them. Puon will use a lot of the parts. What I mean by that, I mean like the fuel lines, a lot of the fuel caps by themselves. I mean, those are pretty much disposable. All that stuff is pretty generic. A steel fuel line is special. It has a special grommet. Yes, I know this one has a grommet, but it's a whole lot easier to get like a pack of 4 or 5 of these grommets than having to spend the same amount of money for like one steel fuel line. Will the steel fuel line last longer? Probably. But the fact is, a lot of this stuff is a lot cheaper to begin with. And my personal machine is an 8500. It's exactly like this one. I've had it for about 5 years now. Bought it used, and I have never had to replace the fuel line. Only did routine maintenance, air filter, cleaned out the spark arrestor once, and that was only because I was looking at it to see if it was plugged as a routine, and it wasn't, but I cleaned it anyway because I already had it out. Had no issues whatsoever, just the end of the year stuff you should be doing no matter what. So this is my opinion. If you're going to be in the market for a leaf blower, highly recommend a EBZ8500 or 8550. They're more or less exactly the same. The handles different, triggers different, stuff like that. Tiny things. The basics of the machine, however, is more or less the same. Or the Echo, whichever one is cheaper. They both good quality. They're both good brands. Husqvarna, like I said, it's exactly the same. The plastics are different and the filter might be a tad different and stuff like that, but the mechanics exactly the same. Steel, yes, is good, but you will have to make sure that you follow up on a lot more maintenance, and in the end, you very well, even if you tried your hardest, may still have those common problems occur at the world's worst time. Now, for those who are actually here and still paying attention, I'm going to give you one final fact. A 4-mix has valves. There has to be some type of mechanism inside to control the valves, and they did. There's a cam. There's a plastic cam. Tell me, and this isn't for a leaf blower. This is for, I believe, a weed eater. Tell me that is going to last a long time. I mean, it is a hard plastic. Don't get me wrong. It's, as plastic were to go, I mean, that's a good piece of plastic. However, look at that. Just look at that. Why? Why is there plastic in there? These gears can get chewed down a lot easier than it was metal. I mean, it's plastic. on a metal gear, so if one of them's going to break, it's going to be this, and you would assume this is going to be easy to replace. And on some machines it's not that bad, but on the blower you have to pretty much remove the motor from the whole housing to get to it. It's on the back end, so that was a great idea. The steel's just, in my opinion, you are getting a product that is not of a high enough quality for the price you're paying. If you're going to be paying that price, get this one. Simple machine, proven reliability, and you don't have to worry about a whole lot of stuff that you just have to worry about with a steel. I don't want this to make it seem like I don't like steels. A lot of their machines are great there. I would, with the exception of maybe Husqvarna chainsaw, I would always have a steel chainsaw, but that's pretty much the only thing I would ever buy with steel, because they are great. There's no better brand of chainsaw out there, but in my opinion, that's pretty much the only thing they should be selling. I'm going to leave you at that. Leave a comment below. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm just dealing with the wrong people and they are constantly messing with their machines. I don't know. Do you have good luck with it? How many hours do you have on yours? Do you have the exact same valve problems that plague a lot of the people that come to my garage? Or am I just the lucky one that has all the people coming to me? I don't know. I'm going to go ahead and leave you with that. Something I will also put this out there. Even though a lot of these problems may be subjective and maybe just for the area I'm in and the fact I work with professionals, but the fact that the crank and the connecting rod are different doesn't change. That's a fact. It's different. There's not a needle bearing. It's a rod, or excuse me, it's a bushing. That's proven. Look it up. Not a smart idea, in my opinion, or for any manufacturer, and that's why you don't see them in any others. None of these other machines will have that. All have needle bearings. Okay, I'm going to leave you at that. Have a good night. Subscribe. Follow me on Instagram at SmallEngine101, and I'll catch you in the next video. You have a good rest of your day.